Okay.
Hi, hi everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
So hi everyone. Actually, we haven't discussed the agenda for today. Durgesh, did you have a chance to progress with the security stuff?
Not this week. I was working on it last week, so
Mm,
not significant yet.
okay,
I'll work on it this weekend.
okay. So any other items for the agenda today? Rob?
No, I mean I've done a few small updates to the doc, but probably not enough worth talking about yet.
I see.
The one thing I did want to, we did get our one of the presentations accepted, so at some point we should probably talk about that to the OCP summit. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if
No,
it's
actually
hi,
no.
Durgesh. Okay, it came a week ago, something like that. At least I got an update. I can forward it to you guys. Basically, the one about this group
Mm-hmm.
or the introduction that got accepted, but the other one, which was about parameters and how we were going to use cases and parameters, that was not accepted. I gotta find the. I'll find it. I can't find the email
Okay.
right now. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Rob, I think my email address was the old one, so I'll work with admin to update my email. I didn't see the update as well. I don't think I saw it, so it's good. Thank you for the job. Great job.
Yeah, I just found it, so I'll at least forward it to you guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Rob, you submitted these presentations?
Yeah, I submitted with the three of us for the one that got accepted, and then you and I for the one that got rejected, which was the Chiplet profile framework.
I see. Okay.
So
Great.
it had your email address, but you're right, Durgesh, it has your MIPS email address on the
yeah.
thing. So yeah, I just forwarded it to you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
And
great.
you were in the original email when Rob was submitting it, right? You remember? We looked at the like the abstract.
Yeah, actually, I got some confusion here with the presentation we did a few weeks ago of the
AI thing.
So yeah, so I missed that actually.
Oh no, this one is OCP. So see if you can travel to US. I don't know if you can.
Yes, I'll look into it positively actually.
So Itai, one more thing which came up. Someone asked me if we are doing the checklist which we mentioned, and someone was asking me if we have started looking at the checklist. I said I'm not aware anyone is, but I'll check with you. So Did we start looking at the checklist?
Yes. So one thing I started doing is I presented it in our previous meetings. I started going with all groups. So I started with the bow fight team, and so that's I got their response, and I'm waiting still from a lad that he has something he wanted to add there, but the bow fight team gave their perspective of the parameters that we need to do, and next is the control path group. So they I think on the last Friday meeting they were presenting their activity, and we said that next thing we'll talk with them and then get their perspective. We can look at it if you want now. I think I just this is something we discussed in our previous meeting.
Okay, so I missed that. I'll let them know. I'll send them a pointer.
Okay. And also, Bruno, I see you are here. I wanted to suggest another topic that maybe Bruno you can take, is to see how the ARM CSA protocol to summarize and see if we are aligned with them, and to check if there are places where we can be aligned with the ARM. Then I think it can contribute to the acceptance of what we are doing.
Yeah. So you're talking about CSA, the Chiplet System
CSA.
Architecture?
Yes, sorry, CSA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are multiple aspects about that. But I think that there are general principles that we may look at and that we can somehow benchmark what we are doing here. Yeah.
Yes, because I
So
think
you
that
would like to have some kind of summary about that, or what?
yes, if is it possible to see how to get the points where we can align with the ARM view of the project. So this is my view. Are you everyone
Yes, I
else
don't know if you
think it's
also Rob also has a viewpoint on that, and maybe he can also help Rob. I don't know to. I think that it's for your architecture specification. It is still an early draft, right? And maybe it can help to formalize things. So because I started to do the kind of review on my side, and I think it would be good to start to define terminology. And so it could be yes, one way to compare things, the terms used and the concepts. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds reasonable to me. I'm not sure how far we're off. I had to go and actually compare. Hopefully things are the same between CSA and us. And the one I was looking at, I have to look and see. I tried to stick with industry standard stuff as much as possible.
The sleek flowing lines perfectly balanced.
So Rob, you think that will be a relatively aligned with the CSA?
I think, but it would be good someone else to look at it, make sure it makes it, because it makes sense to me, but it may not make sense to other people. So
So maybe I can try to address this by doing a kind of comparison table about the concepts.
Yeah, that would be terrific. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Sorry, I
yeah,
was late. What's the CSA? Is that the open chiplet thing or?
No, it's a standard defined by ARM.
Oh, the
It's
ARM
the
chiplet
chiplet
architecture.
system
Okay.
architecture. So it's
Okay.
about having interoperable chiplets, but within the ARM ecosystem.
Right. Well, they claim that it's not just for ARM, but anyway.
I think that yes, there are principles that that are not dependent on ARM ecosystem, but
Right.
yeah.
Right. There needs to be some ecosystem, right? And I know Tenstorrent also announced their open chiplet architecture thing, which is another thing that probably, you know, the last thing the industry needs is or four different approaches, right? So somehow if we can you know, work with something. The thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I was talking to somebody about the ARM stuff, and they said they deliberately are not supporting AXI over UCIe. Is this true? And because they're trying to move everybody to Chai. So are there any limitations on their standard for that?
That is true. When I was at NVIDIA a year ago, we asked them and we pushed it, but they said no, they want to kind of let AXI die off and move towards CHI even for the small transactions.
Okay. Yeah, because as everybody I talk to wants to use AXI for at least at the lower
I
end
agree.
stuff.
I agree.
You know, so I mean that's maybe Bruno, if you're going to be looking at this, maybe you could just also think about, hey, what it would take to maybe add AXI to that as an OCP. I don't know, just we don't want to piss off ARM, but you know what I'm saying, right? But at the end of the day, the customer is always right in one sense, right? So if customers want it, and there's this whole legacy of support, so maybe that's something that should be supported somehow.
Yeah, and everybody's already got one who's building chiplets, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's
I mean, at
you know,
AMD, we probably have 4.
right.
So that's what's the problem. That's always the problem.
so yes, actually, I still fail to understand why why it is matter whether the internally you use XI or Chai, because eventually this is the internal bus going into your other maybe memories or other components on this SoC. So something is as
Well,
I understand,
we
it
have to
doesn't
deliver it
matter.
across the boundary, and that has to be
Yes.
standardized. That's the big problem.
Yes, but if you deliver it, eventually, if you're writing to a register at the other end or to a memory at the other end, you don't care if it's what protocol you are using, whether it's an XI or an AHB or a Chai. So
Yes,
that's
I think that the issue is that it is defined as an on-die protocol, so meaning using directly wires. And yet, when you want to transport it over a die-to-die interface, you need somehow to package the transactions. And the way to package the transactions is not defined.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So on the UCIe, we work to implement Chai. So you take the Chai transaction, convert it into a plate format which UCIe supports. So that's the spec which they publish on Chai C2C. And there's no such thing for AXI because it's just not repackaging. There are a lot of issues with across the cache line, access, interrupts. So there are a lot of things to be figured out. And that's not supported. They said move everyone to CHI rather than AXI. The ETI, that's why there is a dependency on the protocol on what goes in UCIe, FDI there. Unless you are using raw mode, which is fast through.
Can you explain again, Dugesh?
So in UCIe, right, there's a raw mode where whatever you send, it will be sent out without without any error correction bits, without any UCIe bits, right? So that does not clear for protocol. So that you are right. But in UCIe, there are other modes like TXL, PCIe, and streaming, where UCIe digital portion is still responsible for doing the error correction. So it inserts certain bits in the packet, so you have to follow a format. So those modes are dependent on the protocol. But if you go in raw mode, then yes, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are using streaming mode, right? So certainly at a minimum, you'd want to try and be able to support streaming and raw with AXI. So
yeah, so it either package are reformed or there are special bits which UCIe inserts, so you have to leave those open.
I see. But how we define it in our case, there is no difference, right?
You mean in the OCE system flow?
Yes, for the OCE, yes.
Unless we use UCIe for an interface. I mean, yes, we are saying that's UCIe dependent. We are protocol agnostic. Right? That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
but there's a real world out there which is wanting to be UCIe protocol compliant, right? Even if the PHYs are a little bit off. I think that okay, maybe this is off topic, but somehow some people need to get together and say, look, here's a way to, if we all want to try to build commonality with the ARM architecture, which certainly makes sense, big picture, if it's possible, right? To say, okay, here's some ways that we can extend this in some way. Maybe it's a non-standard or an industry mode, well, whatever. I mean, or an open chiplet mode. I don't know. We can come up with something. Again, are we allowed to do that legally? That's the other question, right? Or does ARM own it? And then, so there's probably a gray area here. If I know ARM, they own it, even though you're allowed to use it, right? So in some way, so this is maybe where there's a.
I'm not an attorney, but I think that all these standards are open. As the XI, all the AMBA standards are open, and people are allowed to use them. So I don't think there is an issue to use them.
Yeah, maybe Bruno, if you're going to look into this, it would be just good to understand if we could promote like an OCE or I don't know, just an add-on or something if people agree, right, that there is a need for AXI support in some way, and how could that happen? That would be an interesting thing because I think that a lot of people would be interested in that, right? So
your
raw.
concern is about legal stuff, or?
Well, I was just asking you some questions. Is there any legal issue for, let's say, OCE to say, or a group here to say, hey, we think there is, interest in AXI and as well as, using the whatever they call it, the chiplet CSA, right? Chiplet system architect, whatever terminology they've defined. And here's how we're compatible, and because at some point we're going to come up with a document, right, to say, hey, this is kind of what OCP is saying or OCE is saying for system management, and here's how we would compare or interface with, for example, UCIe, which is a common standard, right? And because a lot of people are interested in that. If we just say we don't care about anything and we just have a standard, but it doesn't address any of the real issues, then what value is it? Does that make sense? I mean, so I think the real value question is, okay, somebody wants to use UCIe, somebody wants to use our checklist or our profiles or whatever we want to do. And one of those should be, hey, if you use AXI, this is how you would do it, right? And how do we define our standard?
I agree that we need to strive to be aligned with the other standards to reach more commonality.
So Rob, did you guys look into this, or Arvind? I know at IBM. I mean, it's got to be something you've thought about, right?
Well, I mean, like probably most people, we have internal standards to do
Yeah.
this. Like I said, and it depends on the group and project. We may have multiple. um, we've always looked for an external standard, but yeah, we've heard the same thing other folks have heard from ARM, which is they're just not interested in it. I mean, Synopsys has an IP that does it, and so they have sort of a standard, but I don't know that they have a desire to make that an official standard either. So I think we're kind of stuck in this limbo, and that's the question: is can we just do it?
Yeah.
As part of
No,
OCB, yeah. I mean, and get feedback, and people will complain, and that's good because then that means people would want to use the standard.
right. I mean, I think that's our purpose at OCE, right? Is to try and tie things together so that the whole community can benefit, right? I think that's the premise. I think we should try and pursue it if we can.
Okay, so I took action.
Okay.
And by the way, I've got a question because when I started to work through the documents written by Rob, I was wondering if there is a document listing the use cases that we would like to address. Because you listed the use cases, Rob, in your document, but I was wondering if there is somewhere another document listing the use cases we want to address within the OCE.
I think that was the idea behind my doc is let's get all the use cases that we want to address in it. So if we're missing some, which I'm sure we are, let's talk about them and get them in the document. And maybe we need to prioritize at some point because the list gets way too long. But let's get everything in there. So if there's things that are missing, let's talk about them. And I'll get them in the document.
Yes, because I was also thinking about the security topics, and usually you need to start from use cases. I would say at system level and then at chip level.
This is of great interest to me as well because I haven't, because of my time, I haven't really had a chance to talk about it in this group. But we're seeing people considering how do we build security for chiplets, right? And then, as you probably know, OCE has a group talking about Calyptra and security and secure boot. So maybe that's a pathway to at least reference and talk to that group as well, right? So. Because is it completely open and because it is, by the way, it is open source, right? They have open sourced the Calyptra root of trust, and they're obviously being used for HPC and is that something that we should be looking at and saying that this is going to be available and this is part of the OCE and here's a way to secure your chiplets, right, at the high level. I mean, obviously we need security. But is that something that we can work with that group on or get inputs or think about that? That was the use case that I was interested in because it seems to make sense to me that there's an open source where they've got the processor, they've got the code running, and so it does seem like a good foundation for adding to the system, the system group's capability or thought process.
Do you know how mature is the Cleopatra project is? Because recently when I checked, there is another project called Open Titan, which also develop an open source root of trust
Yeah, OpenTitan
Which-
came first, right? I think that was the Google thing, and now I think
yes.
it's transitioned to Calyptra. So I think OpenTitan was from a few years back. Yeah, but I know the data center guys are sort of trying to standardize on Calyptra. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Does anybody else have experience with this, or is everybody doing their own security, so they don't care about Calyptra?
In
So
in
for
my case, I use the OpenTitan as
Oh, you have
root.
used OpenTitan. Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, for the data center is AMD, NVIDIA, Intel, all of us are aware adding root of trust through Calyptra, or at least one of the root of trust through Calyptra.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the key. That's the problem. Is people are adding Calyptra, but often it's a handoff after they do their own. So just seems to be a trend.
Yeah, because everyone has their unique way, so Calyptra is not solving all those challenges. Yes.
So you're saying Calyptra is missing certain things that you would need for a chiplet ecosystem. Think of it along the chiplet ecosystem as opposed to, because that's kind of what we're trying to
So
discuss.
Kash, I don't think it's missing. It's just that I'm just speaking from the NVIDIA world. There were a lot of proprietariness in the sequence because there were like 5 or 6 root of trust. So the solution was, okay, we will keep Calyptra so that there is a common API, but we will not get rid of some for other root of trust because
Sure.
the firmware. So it's a more proprietariness than Calyptra missing something.
Okay. But from a system of trying to define, okay, here's okay, or does it not make sense to say, hey, here's Calyptra is open source supported by OCE, and this is kind of how it could help manage the system of chiplets. Is that in our purview or not really as a group?
I mean, it can always be, but Calyptra has a board of 4 or 5 members. It's active for 2, 3 years. So they created the spec. Kash, I'm just trying to understand. You think there's something we should add or we should look into it? Is that
Okay.
what you're suggesting?
Yeah, so I'm looking at when you're like an AMD or you're a very large company, right? You to your point, you've got all these root of trust and everything else, right? That's great. Look back and say, okay, I'm now going to try and do some chiplets, and you're not this giant company, right? So that's why they're going to be looking at our spec or the system spec. I mean that's or whatever we end up generating and saying, okay, this is a document that tells us how do we do chiplets? What are the things we need to look at, right? Security is obviously a large portion of that. So how are we helping them to say, okay, this is a way to implement security for your group of chiplets? Or are
That's
we
a very good point. Yeah, it's a very good
trying to
point. I
help them
mean,
do that, right?
yeah, it's a good point. We will have to go to Calyptra route at least for data center, but we cannot. I mean, Rob is here, and I don't think we can convince anyone to get rid of their root of trust. It is kind
No,
of
no,
delicate.
no. But think of AMD will do whatever AMD wants to do. They have all the resources in the world, right? Or NVIDIA, right? Think of the other group of guys wanting to do chiplets, and so having something. If the big guys will at least support Calyptra as one of the options, and then they want to implement something, so this seems like a logical thing to talk about in this group, and to say, hey, this is something open source. And hopefully somebody potentially could even develop a chiplet that already is an open source chiplet, for example, not an open source, but a chiplet product, a multi-vendor chiplet. So if you were going to do a security chiplet, then Calyptra would make more sense from that standpoint, right? And with a UCI interface or whatever interface that exists, that might be something that this could lead to down the road.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think for us, that's the decision we have to make, and I don't think there is any other option. And Calyptra appears as a good option. I agreed with your comment, what you're trying to do.
Okay. So maybe we could put that as one of the use cases, right? So because this is one of the things that everybody's interested, well, not everybody, but it is one of the key things of how do I manage my chiplets, right? One is the security. The other thing is, how do I manage my other chiplets, right? Which I don't know if you've defined this yet, but in terms of, reliability, are the chiplets who they say they are? There's going to be attestation and all that from a security standpoint. But so I haven't looked at the document recently, but I know that we were sort of building, hey, here are some architectures and use cases, right? So maybe, can somebody send me a link so I can see the latest doc? Okay, so I apologize, I haven't seen it. But this is an area of interest from people who are trying to enter the chiplet area, right? Which is like, okay, what do I need to be aware of to make my chiplet interop? You need security, and here's a pathway that OCE is enabling, and here's some spec, whatever, right? Here's as we write it up, and we should at least have something about that, in my view.
Yes, initially we defined security as one of the topics that we want to address. So yes, we should address that. So I think Durgesh said Durgesh will take will lead that. So I think it can be part of the activities to define.
Okay.
Is to define that we are based on Calypso. This is a good idea. What do you think, Durgesh?
Yeah, I agree. We should take Calyptra as our reference and add it as a reference for systems workstream. It's pretty well defined. It's just that people have proprietary names. That's why they keep their own.
Yeah. So, and that's never going to change, right? So, but the question is, if we can get people to say, okay, here's a common one that's open source, and and eventually we can lead to people developing a security chiplet, for example, for some of these functions, right? So the question is, do you need that in like a giant hub chiplet, or may you have sort of for some of these blocks like a dedicated chiplet, which is for security, for example, and bringing up and managing chiplets. So it depends on how big what your final architecture is. So for a lot, I think the value of chiplets is if you can take common blocks and build chiplets out of that, and so the end customer, particularly the smaller ones, only need to focus on their core IP, if that makes sense, rather than having to, just rebuild complete systems, right? So I think that's hopefully that will align with this group's goal. And Durgesh, maybe we've been meaning to have coffee together one of these days, right? So
Yeah.
we might to chat more on that one-on-one.
Yeah, point well taken. And I agree. That's what we will put in the document.
Okay. So another topic, I see that Rich, that you are here. So
yes,
hi, Rich. Again, so Durgesh asked about the checklist. So also I answered with the activity that I am doing of aligning all the groups, but there is an additional checklist subject. Right.
Yeah, let me give an update. I can give an update from what we've been doing. So my team of consultants have been working on a checklist for UCIe. Our team is focused on die-to-die interfaces, so that's a natural one for us to tackle. And we have put together a first cut at it. It's pretty comprehensive. And I've got some opinions about it. I think some of the things that are on the list make it there's too many items on it. I don't think some of them need to be there because they won't be a problem with interoperability. So that being said, the other activity that I've been working on is, and I'm the type of person that needs to, I like to work on, examples to help me think through a problem. And one of what was I wrote a Python script, and I have a JSON format for, I started with UCIe. And it's not comprehensive yet, but it was a way to start thinking through how would it be used, who would use it, and those kinds of things. And I did send a zip of my work area out to some of the people. I wasn't sure I got everybody. But yeah, I haven't heard any feedback from that. And so did you guys, did anybody get what I sent out, that zip file of the tool?
When was it? How long ago? Or
Oh, it was a couple of weeks ago. I've been on travel for a couple of weeks, so I'm just getting back into the groove. But yeah, I sent it out. I'm going to check. Well, how did I do it? I think I replied to somebody requested it, and I think it was actually, there's a meeting on Friday.
yes.
I think that's where I sent it to the group on Friday. Somebody requested it, so I just did a reply and attached it.
So actually, last week I also asked from the OCE organization to build a mailing list for our activity. So now we have it, and I'm not sure if you're on the list. Can you write your email here, and I'll send it to you, and then you can reply with this zip file?
Yeah, put it in the chat. Yep.
So is there something that you can contribute to this activity? Is it something?
Yeah, of an interoperability checklist.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd like to participate. And like I said, my group that I work with, they work, focused on UCIe right now. But yeah, we definitely, I'd like to, kind of thoroughly go through one example of one aspect, and then I think applying it to other dimensions would be a good way to proceed. I think you described something about getting feedback from other work groups, which is, fantastic. I think that's a good way to go about it, instead of a small group trying to tackle everything.
Yes. So yes, this is something I started. You can see that I prepared an Excel, and also in the presentation I put in our working group working documents. There is more details, but if you have something that will be great. You know what? I'll share what. Let me share a moment. Sorry, if it's okay, because again we discussed it in the previous meeting. So if it's something that it's too boring to hear again, then I apologize. But here we have the document. So so this is the chiplet definition. Okay, which I started building. So we have so you see my sharing? You see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is again, we discussed it though. So this is the system. This is the file. This is activity which I proceed with the bow team, which Kash is part of it. And next thing is the link layer, and also the data path, the control path. So this is the initial work, and it's ongoing.
And where does this document live?
It's in we have in our this is our Google Drive folder. I'll send I'm sending the link, and I guess you'll need to ask for permission. Then it comes to one of us. Durgesh, Rob, and I, and then we'll approve it. And here we have the working documents. Okay, so here is the Rob documents. This is our initial charter, and this is the Excel that I started building. I put the link in the chat for the folders.
Yeah, thanks. Oh,
So,
yeah, I clicked the link, but it's using my personal Gmail. But it's my name, rich.klinger@gmail.com.
Okay, so if you request access permission.
Yeah, I did. I did.
Oh.
I submitted it. Yep.
Okay, great. So we'll approve it, and you'll have access to it.
Thanks.
Okay, so maybe we'll set an agenda for the next week. So Rich, can you present next week this activity?
Yeah, with the Python and the JSON.
Yes.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, so Rich, you're next week. Durgesh, after that, it will be your turn. Okay.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, and after that, Bruno. Okay, with CSA alignment and comparison.
Okay.
So okay, so I'll send it to the mailing list, and I'll add your mails, and we have the agenda for the next 3 meetings ahead. Okay. By the way, people are joining. You are joining the EE Times Chiplet convention. You are aware of it? There is it's going on today and tomorrow.
Yeah, I joined portions of it. I'm aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what are they covering at that convention?
They have various presentations from the main players of their status of chiplets.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they collect all the industry people,
Right.
and and they sponsor them, right? Many times. So you have to pay, I think, for some of it.
Oh, I see.
So they just collect the industry people. I was going to send them mail because last time I participated and was in a
Okay,
forum
I see.
to talk to you as well.
The participation is free.
Yep.
Yeah, but the presentation last year,
Oh.
I think both times missed it, so we paid them some amount.
I see.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay, so anything else someone wants to raise? Okay, so I think thanks everyone, and we'll follow the agenda we just decided, and I'll send a mail to our mailing list with this plan.
Thanks, Itai.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.